I cannot marry a girl who only knows how to scrub floors, Anya. You are dismissed. The words, cold and sharp as winter air, had shattered Anya Selwyn's world, leaving behind only the agonizing echo of the chapel bell that would never toll for her. But then, a sudden, soft voice asked a question that would change 3 lives forever. Anya stood on the cobblestones, the velvet pouch of severance pay feeling like a stone of failure in her numb hand. Her hands trembled. Her eyes burned. The scent of snow and expensive, indifferent city life swirled around her, a cruel contrast to the scent of spiced mead and warm bread that had promised a home. Preston, her fiancé, had been the crown prince's secretary, and she, a highly skilled housemaid, had thought their love transcended class. She had been wrong, terribly, heart-wrenchingly wrong. The empty bench opposite the grand cathedral was a monument to her failure to connect. It was Christmas Eve. Every pane of glass shimmered with warm, golden light, a celebration she was excluded from. She was an orphan, dismissed, and now, heartbroken, she had nowhere to go in the massive capital city. In the streets, already slick with the first whisper of a blizzard, seemed to swallow her whole. The memory was a bitter poison. The destiny he spoke of had been a lie. She sat, finally, on the cold marble of the cathedral steps, pulling her thin coat tighter. She was too exhausted, too emotionally depleted to even cry. The city's noise, usually a comforting rhythm, was now a loud, indifferent mockery. She closed her eyes. She had worked for 7 years to save for a cottage, to create a life only for one man's fear of society's judgment to erase it all. Her lungs felt hollow. She was just Anya, the girl who scrubbed floors, and that, apparently, was a fate worse than death. A small gust of wind pulled at her woolen scarf, and she shivered. The cathedral door, made of dark ancient oak, opened, spilling a momentary ray of warm, colored light onto the street. A tall, cloaked figure emerged, but she barely registered him, lost in the crushing defeat. The figure moved down the steps, pausing a few feet from her. His presence was an immediate yet somehow subtle interruption of her despair. He smelled faintly of rain, old parchment, and a cold, shocking scent she couldn't place. The empty air around her had suddenly become charged. It was then, as the figure was about to pass her, that she heard the rustle of small feet, and a small, profoundly innocent voice cut through the silence. Anya kept her head bowed, hoping the man, whoever he was, would simply continue on his way. She did not want pity. She did not want charity. She simply wanted to dissolve into the night. But the small feet stopped, directly in front of her. 2 pairs, judging by the close sound. The man, the cloaked figure, let out a slow, controlled breath, the kind of deep sigh that denotes profound, weary patience. Astrid, Bronte, we agreed. No detours, he murmured, his voice a low, resonant rumble, a sound that seemed to vibrate in the cold air. The girls, judging by the names, were his children. They stood, silent for a moment, simply observing her slumped form. Their silence was more unnerving than any question. Then Astrid, or perhaps Bronte, she couldn't tell which, spoke again. Sir? The word was simple, yet it held the weight of a profound realization. Anya finally lifted her head, her red-rimmed eyes meeting the girls. The child was small, dressed in a thick, beautifully embroidered coat, and had eyes the color of polished amethyst, a truly stunning, almost unsettling shade. Standing beside her was an identical twin. The man, the father, stood behind them. He was breathtakingly tall, wrapped in a long, charcoal gray coat that looked woven from shadow, and his face, though framed by a sharp, aristocratic jawline, was surprisingly gentle, though his eyes held 1,000-year-old melancholy. His eyes, they were the same shocking amethyst as his daughter's. He was Lysander Veronin, a Dayjagger countess's ward, a notorious recluse and a figure of whispered Gothic rumors. He was practically nobility, yet he stood on the street like a concerned neighbor. The girls exchanged a look. "Can we join you?" Astrid asked, the repetition of the key phrase, that turning point dialogue, ringing out clearly. The father cleared his throat, a sound of gentle warning. "Girls, the lady is clearly having a private moment." He used the word lady, a small, kind act of elevation that cut deeper than any insult. Anya shook her head, a pathetic, almost imperceptible movement. "No, no, it's all right." She could feel the weight of his gaze, cool, shockingly so, but steady and firm. Bronte took a tentative step toward her. "Our mother always said that cold places feel warmer if you share a secret." Anya managed a weak, almost painful smile. The depth of their small, profound wisdom was startling. They stood, speaking truths the adults were too complicated to understand. "I don't have a very good secret right now," Anya whispered, her voice rough with unshed tears. Lysander Veronin knelt down gracefully, bringing himself to the girl's level, but his gaze remained fixed on Anya, a silent apology in his amethyst eyes. "Astrid, Bronte, remember what we talked about, respecting boundaries." But the twins were not listening. They were laser-focused on the forlorn woman. "Did you lose something?" Bronte asked, her small hand reaching out and placing a gentle, warm touch on Anya's icy one. The contact was electrifying, grounding. It broke the spell of her despair. She found herself, against her own will, starting to speak. She didn't tell them the whole story, the 7 years of labor, the stolen dream, the devastating rejection. She simply said, "I lost a future I thought was guaranteed." Lysander watched her, his expression unreadable, but his shoulders seemed to tense slightly. He recognized the pain of a profound, irrevocable loss. Astrid nodded sagely. "Maybe that future wasn't good enough. Maybe the weak man didn't come so you could meet us instead." The words were an explosion of profound, undeniable truth. Lysander's head snapped up, a flicker of surprise and something like quiet awe crossing his face. He looked at his daughters, then back to Anya. Preston's cruelty had indeed become a beginning, not an end. The thought settled over her like a warm blanket. Lysander finally spoke, his voice low and intimate. "My daughters, as you can see, operate on a different, more ethereal plane of logic. They believe deeply in the concept of crossed paths." He pushed a stray lock of dark hair back from the twins' face. "They are also very cold. It is Christmas Eve, and we were attempting to find a place to procure a Christmas pudding before the blizzard fully sets in. It seems, however, we have found a crisis instead." He stood, the movement fluid and unnervingly graceful. He didn't ask her name. He didn't ask what happened. He simply assessed the new reality. "Miss," he said, the honorific sounding sincere, "you cannot sit on these steps, not tonight. May I offer you a very temporary alternative? My cook, a kindly gnome, makes a superlative stew, and my house has a functioning fireplace. No questions, no demands, simply warmth for a few hours. The girls, I can assure you, will not take no for an answer." Anya hesitated. Go with a stranger, a man whose name was synonymous with Gothic solitude and Shadowkin rumors? But his eyes were earnest, and the twins' faces were hopeful, their amethyst gazes fixed on her. She was a woman of strong instincts, and despite the chilling rumors about Lysander Veronin, her gut told her he was a safe harbor. "Lysander Veronin," she said, finally giving her name. "Anya Selwyn, I accept your offer. Thank you." Lysander gave a slight formal bow, a gesture of old-world courtesy. "The pleasure is entirely ours, Miss Selwyn." He offered his arm. His grip, as she took it, was cool, shockingly so, but steady and firm. A sense of peace, unexpected and profound, washed over her. Her heart thawed. Her feet followed. Her old life stayed behind. They walked quickly through the narrow, snow-dusted streets. The girls skipped ahead, small, bright shadows leading the way. They chattered incessantly. Papa is a very good vegetable negotiator, Astrid declared seriously to Anya, especially with carrots. Lysander let out a sound that was half chuckle, half sigh. I'm professionally trained in vegetable negotiations, Miss Selwyn, he confirmed, a gentle, situational humor lightening the heavy atmosphere. It's a mandatory skill when dealing with a gnome cook. They arrived at a house that was both grand and discreet, set back from the street behind a high, wrought iron fence. It was quiet, massive, and draped in ivy, looking like a manor plucked straight from a romantic tragedy. Inside, the contrast was immediate and warm. A fire roared in a huge hearth, and the scent of spiced cider and stew was intoxicating. Lysander led her into a large, comfortable drawing room. Please, he gestured to a large velvet-upholstered chair. Shed your coat. I will send for the stew. He did not look at her like a maid or a charity case or a rejected fiancé. He looked at her like a guest. He offered a dignity she hadn't realized she had lost. The twins had disappeared, presumably to negotiate with the gnome cook. Lysander stood before the fireplace, silent for a long moment, staring into the flames. Why was she here? Why had destiny, after delivering such a cruel blow, suddenly intervened with this quiet, haunted man and his strange, prophetic children? Every disappointment had led her here to the quiet safety of this strange house. Lysander turned, finally. Miss Selwyn, Anya, I hope you will not take offense at my directness, but I feel I must offer a deeper apology. The world is cruel, and on this night, cruelty seems particularly potent. His voice softened, becoming more intimate. I have no idea what you've been through, but I recognize the look of someone whose foundation has just been ripped away. I have worn that expression myself. He did not share his story, but he shared his empathy, and that was more important. I see you, Anya, he said, the simple phrase hitting her with the force of a revelation. The gnome, a cheerful and formidable creature named Barnaby, bustled in with a tray bearing 2 steaming bowls of stew, thick slices of bread, and 2 glasses of a dark, fragrant wine. The twins followed, bringing their own smaller bowls. The atmosphere shifted from tense drama to warm, shared humanity. The soup is extremely serious, Bronte announced, pulling her chair close to Anya's. You must eat all of it. Gnome's law. Anya couldn't help the small, genuine laugh that escaped her. Lysander watched her, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. It was a beautiful thing, that genuine smile, transforming his melancholy face. The meal was silent for a while, a rhythmic, comforting pattern of eating and the crackle of the fire. As the meal concluded, the tension returned, though it was now a tension of connection, not despair. Lysander dismissed Barnaby with a wave of thanks, and the twins curled up on the rug near the fire, suddenly sleepy. Astrid and Bronte are special, Lysander began, his voice a low confession. They are not entirely human. My wife, their mother, was of the Shadowkin. She passed 3 years ago. He did not dwell on the sorrow, but stated it as a fact of his life. The rumors you hear in the city, the whispers, they are exaggerated but not entirely false. The Veronin line is old, and we guard our privacy for good reason. He was laying his cards on the table, offering her the unvarnished truth of his life. Your fiancé, I take it, was worried about what society would say. My society, Anya, is already estranged from me. I care only for the opinions of these 2, he gestured to the sleeping twins, and my own conscience. He paused, his amethyst eyes searching hers. I have not had a connection like this, a shared silence, a moment of mutual understanding since my wife. The girls felt it too. They are drawn to light. He was everything Preston was not. The air grew thick. The truth was spoken. She understood. Anya found herself reaching out, resting her hand lightly on his forearm. Preston was a coward, she said simply, the simplicity of the dialogue contrasting with the dramatic narration. You are not. Thank you for telling me your truth. Lysander covered her hand with his grip again cool and steady. I have a question, Anya. It's not about what happened, but about what will happen. The blizzard is getting worse. Where do you plan to go? She looked down, away from the piercing sincerity of his gaze. I have a small sum. I'll find an inn tomorrow, then look for new employment. Housemaid work, perhaps out of the capital, somewhere people don't know who I am. Her ambition was gone, replaced by the grim determination of survival. She was simply trying to find a footing again. Lysander's expression tightened. No, not tonight. Not in a blizzard. He rose, moving to the massive window where the snow was now whipping against the glass in a frenzied dance. Anya, I need a new housekeeper, a real one. Barnaby is a brilliant cook but a terrible administrator. I need someone honest, discreet, and capable, someone who can manage a large house and these two demanding small people. He turned back to her. I am offering you a position, not charity. The pay is more than generous. The accommodation is a small, separate, very private apartment on the third floor. I am Lysander Veronin, reclusive widower, and I need a solution. You are Anya Selwyn, a woman who has just been wronged, and you need a new future. I am not offering you love or a replacement life. I am offering you stability, a quiet place, and a fresh start. On your own terms. The offer was staggering. A housekeeper, she repeated, the word tasting like redemption. I am a very good housekeeper. She had spent her life honing these skills. I know you are, Lysander said, his smile genuine this time, and I have no social standing left to lose by employing the best. Anya stood up, her weariness suddenly replaced by a surge of purpose. Done, she said, her voice firm. I start tomorrow, but I will not take an apartment for free. You will deduct the rent from my wages until I have been paid enough to cover it. I am not a charity case, Lysander. He looked surprised, then a deeper, warmer respect bloomed in his eyes. Understood, Anya. A separate ledger will be kept for your accommodation costs. It will be the most expensive flat in the city, he added with a gentle wink. He called for Barnaby to prepare the apartment and a bath. The gnome grumbled good-naturedly about Dajager, countesses, and their chaotic hiring practices. Lysander walked her to the winding, dark, grand staircase. He paused at the foot of it, the shadows of the old house seemingly clinging to the charcoal of his coat. Anya, he said, and she turned to face him. Tomorrow is Christmas. The girls will have presents. I suggest you also take a moment to buy something for yourself. Consider it a signing bonus. We will negotiate the details of your employment after the holiday. She nodded, her throat tight with emotion. Her eyes shone, not with tears of sorrow, but tears of hope. She climbed the stairs, her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. The disappointment with Preston was now truly just a footnote, a small, necessary detour. She woke late the next morning. The blizzard had stopped, and the world outside her window was a pristine, shocking white. The small apartment was beautiful, filled with antique, comfortable furniture, and a window seat bathed in morning light. She had a home. She had a job. She was free. A gentle knock on the door, followed by a whispered, conspiratorial giggle, announced the twins. Housekeeper Anya, Bronte whispered, clutching a small, brightly wrapped gift. Papa says we are going to open presents downstairs. You have to come down before we get into the serious, intense negotiations with the ribbon. Anya smiled genuinely, broadly, for the first time in 2 days. She dressed quickly and followed the twins downstairs. Lysander was in the drawing room, a crackling fire and a huge, glittering Christmas tree creating a scene of perfect holiday warmth. He looked up, and their eyes met across the room. There was a profound, mutual recognition, not of love yet, but of two solitary souls who had found an anchor. "Merry Christmas, Anya," he said, his voice soft. "It's good to see you here." She accepted the gift from Bronte, a small, intricately carved wooden bird, and found a comfortable seat. The danger was gone. The stakes were now purely emotional. Lysander was, by his own admission, a recluse, but watching him with his daughters, he was also deeply, profoundly human, a father whose priority was the warmth and stability of his family. She spent the day in the easy, rhythmic chaos of their Christmas. Lysander was reserved but kind. The twins were boisterous and loving. He let his emotional guard down just enough for her to see the immense loneliness that had lived in his heart. They were two people, dismissed by society for different reasons, who had found common ground in the simple, profound need for connection and belonging. By evening, the house was quiet again. The girls were asleep. Anya and Lysander sat in the drawing room, the fire dying down to glowing embers. "Thank you, Lysander," Anya said, looking at him, "for seeing me, not the maid, not the girl who was rejected, but me." He reached out, taking her hand. This time, his hand was warmer. "Anya," he murmured, his gaze intense, I think you were the present the universe finally decided to give us. You are more than a housekeeper. You are the light my girls were waiting for." The man who had been her fate was a fraud, but the man who had been her destiny was a quiet, haunted count who simply needed someone to negotiate the carrots.